we're just about to get underway. On behalf of Phil and Fubble's Debate and Discussion Group, I'm really delighted to invite such a large number of people here this afternoon to kick off our first debate or discussion. I have to begin with an apology. Regrettably, Laura Marlowe, who was due to do an event for us earlier today, was recently and very swiftly appointed as the Irish Times new correspondent to the US and had to pull out at very short notice. Now, despite us issuing notice to the press, I think some people did turn up, and we do apologise for any inconvenience that you may have experienced. You'll find dotted around the hall information about our events this week. There is a very, very full programme. I'm not going to go through them all, but just in the next couple of days, a couple of really interesting and exciting events. Relatives for Justice are doing an event on Monday here in St Mary's on dealing with the past, and Dennis Bradley and others will be involved in that event. And on Monday evening, an event on the burning of Bombay Street in Clonard Hall at 7:30. And then finally, just mentioning, President Mary McAleese will be here in this hall on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. for a lecture. It's open to the public, and there will be an opportunity afterwards for you to meet President McAleese very briefly. So we welcome you to all of those and the other events that are in the little programme. So then to today's event. First of all, St Mary's have asked me to remind you that there is no smoking in this building. They've also reminded me to tell you to turn off your mobile phones and asked me to point out the fire exits that are here on the side of the hall in case of any emergency. Then turning to this event, we're absolutely delighted that Brendan Duddy has made himself available to this event. It's very much characteristic of the sort of event that we've put on, where we've had an opportunity to give someone like Brendan the opportunity for engagement with our audience, for you to have the opportunity to ask questions and find out a bit more. Brendan has played a very quiet and very humble role in the peace process, and only recently has some of the details of his role as a secret peacemaker become available. And that was also the title of a very excellent TV documentary about his role. So we're absolutely delighted that Brendan has come here today to be available to you, the audience. The format is that Barney Rowan, will interview Brendan for a little while, and then there will be an opportunity for questions afterwards. Barney Rowan is a very familiar face to you all in his role as security correspondent with the BBC. He's also the author of several books on the peace process, and these days his work can be found in the columns of the Belfast Telegraph. So without further ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Brian.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I'll just say a few very short words about how I intend to deal with the interview before we get to the Q&A. I thought it might be best, Brendan's happy enough to do it in a number of blocks. We'll deal with the 70s first of all, and Brendan's first role between the British government at that time and the IRA leadership at that time. How the 70s developed. We look at the 80s. Of course, in the 80s there's a huge interest in the hunger strikes of 1980 and 1981, and we deal with that in as much detail as the audience wants it dealt with. We're then going to look at the 90s, which is the back-channel negotiations between, again, the British government and the Republican leadership, leading to the 1994 ceasefire. How all of that blew up in people's faces, the back-channel in 1993. And then we'll take it through to the most recent developments, the Good Friday Agreement, and the key developments within the peace process.